There is a fantastic, fascinating metric that describes how you perceive time, how you experience time, how you understand time. And this metric describes or predicts how easily or not so easily you will be able to achieve what you want in life. How easily you'll be able to get your goals, get your intentions, achieve your ambitions. The name of this metric is your personal time preference. And it's calculated by comparing two sums of money. A certain amount of money now in the present, and that same money plus a little bit more in the future, and seeing when they will be equivalent. For example, which would you rather have? $1 million today or $5 million in the future? Which would you rather have? 1 million today or 3 million in the future? 1 million today or 2 million in the future? 1 million today or 1.5 million in the future? 1 million today or 1.25 in the future? 1 million today or 1.1 million in the future? When you get to the point where these are equal in your mind, the difference, as expressed as a percentage, is your time preference. For example, let's say 1 million versus 1.1 million a year from now are equal in your mind. You don't care which one of these you get, this one or this one, it doesn't matter. They are equal. 1 versus 1.1 in a year. 1 now versus 1.1 in a year. Then your difference, the difference, 10% is your time preference. Now, it's not quite obvious, but the lower your time preference, the easier of a time you'll have delaying gratification. For example, if your time preference is 500%, or 1 million today is equal to 5 million a year from now, you have a hard time imagining the future. You have a hard time imagining the future and getting a now feeling as you imagine that future event, that future life. Whereas if your time preference is 10%, 1 versus 1.1, you have a pretty good ability to imagine the future, to think a year into the future and think 1.1 a year from now, that's an extra $100,000. I could probably use that money, so I can imagine that future, and I'll decide that, yeah, I'll take the 1.1, or 1.1 is about the same as now. You have an easier time imagining the future, whereas if it's really, really high, the future is just kind of this vague thing that I can't even think past next week. How can I imagine the future? So the lower your time preference is, the easier of a time you'll have being able to delay gratification. Because delayed gratification is doing something today that's not pleasant today, but will create something pleasant in the future. And the easier you can imagine that future, and imagine that pleasant thing in the future, imagine that pleasant thing in the future, and get a feeling right now, a positive feeling right now as you imagine that future, the easier you can delay gratification. Now, here's another interesting aspect of time preference. This is kind of a subtle point, but it's very, very important. Imagine your time preference is 10%. 1 versus 1.1 million is the same in your mind. So if I take 1 million from you now, I have to give you 1.1 in a year because that's the same amount of money. I have to give you back what I took. If I take 1 million, I have to give you back 1.1 in a year. So if I asked you to borrow some money, you wouldn't lend me the money unless the interest rate was at least 10%. If I took 1 million and gave you 1.05 a year from now, which is 5% interest, you wouldn't accept that because 1.05 is less than 1 million now. 1.05 in a year is less than 1 million now because your time preference is 10%. So you wouldn't loan me the money unless I gave you an interest rate that was at least equal to your time preference. This is a very subtle but very important point because according to economists, when they measure time preference, the average time preference of society is the free market interest rate of society. And the lower the interest rate of society, the better people in that society can delay gratification. The higher the interest rates are in society, the harder it is for people to delay gratification. Now, this might not seem like an interesting point or a valid point or a relevant point, but consider one of the greatest events in human history, the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution catapulted the earth into the modern world. And according to historians, for the couple hundred years before the Industrial Revolution, they had what's called the Industrious Revolution. Industrious because people were becoming much more efficient, much more effective. They were working a lot harder. They were doing things differently. They were working harder. They were saving their money. And a lot of other things happened in society as well. Violent crimes decreased. The murder rates decreased. They voluntarily got rid of the death penalty. They voluntarily got rid of slavery. All these things were happening leading up into the Industrial Revolution. And interestingly, during that same time period, the free market interest rates were declining, which suggests that as the Industrious Revolution was happening, leading up to the Industrial Revolution, people's average time preference was decreasing because it's correlated to the interest rates, and their ability to delay gratification was increasing. So leading up to the Industrial Revolution, everybody in English society was slowly increasing their ability to delay gratification. And that's what led, and that had a whole bunch of side benefits, and that's what led to the Industrial Revolution. And the same thing can happen to you. If you slowly decrease your ability or increase your ability to delay gratification and decrease your time preference, that will slowly catapult you into your own kind of revolution of how you live your life. So how do you increase your ability to delay gratification and subsequently decrease your time preference? Well, one way you can operate directly on your time preference is take some time imagining your future. Just imagine your future as an extrapolation of today. Don't imagine it as from a wishing standpoint where you get lucky or you meet somebody that makes it easy for you, but extrapolate your best behavior today and what that will be like in a year. Spend a few minutes every day visualizing your future based on what you can do today. Just spend some time visualizing, and that will slowly decrease your time preference, which will make it naturally easier for you to delay gratification. You can also do things to operate directly on your ability to delay gratification. Eat a little bit slower. If you eat fast food 6 times a week, slip down to 5 times a week and keep it at that for a couple of weeks, and then slip down to 4 times a week for a couple of weeks. And just do things to slowly increase your ability or to strengthen your delayed gratification muscle. And if you slowly do this over time your time preference will decrease, your ability to delay gratification will increase, and you'll slowly take off just like the Industrial Revolution, and pretty soon you'll be hitting on all cylinders, and you'll really be start to achieving what you want. So whatever you want to do in the future, imagine that. If you want to be a better speaker, imagine that in the future. If you want to be a better persuader, imagine that in the future. If you want to be a better seducer, imagine that in the future, and imagine that as being an extrapolation from what you're doing today. The more you do these exercises, the more you'll be able to decrease your time preference and increase your ability to delay gratification. And this is one of the most hidden, misunderstood secrets of personal development. But understand this and leverage this, and you will have a much easier time becoming successful. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to learn more, check out the links below. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.